Hello, welcome back to The Road to Episode 9, my ongoing series where I chart the road to the release of Star Wars Episode 9 in December 2019. In this video I want to talk about seeing The Last Jedi in 4DX and also in IMAX. Now I guess I can kind of cover IMAX pretty quickly, so I'll just leave that till the end I suppose and just mainly talk about the 4DX experience, which I'd never done before. I heard about it maybe a year or two ago that they were starting to introduce this. I believe it was a technology that was created by a guy in Korea where the seats in the cinema would move and there'd be various environmental effects and things like that to really immerse you into the movie, make you feel like you were there, things like that. And of course, you know, if you've been to any kind of theme park or anything like that in the past 20-25 years, maybe even further back, I don't know, you probably would have experienced one of those things yourself. I went to one in Disneyland Paris in 1999, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, you know, where we'd sit down and there's this huge dog on the stage that sneezed and you get blasted with water and stuff, and then there's mice apparently running around the cinema, and so they're blowing wind on your feet and stuff, and it was really scary for me as a kid, obviously. And then with the wind blowing, things like that. So it was one of those. I don't think there was wind blowing. No, there wasn't, but there was in The Last Jedi, which I'll get to now. So I saw that it was actually showing in Cardiff, where I was over Christmas, and I was like, no way. They've got a 4DX screening room in Cineworld, and so I saw that they were indeed showing The Last Jedi. I thought, wow, that would be cool to try out just for the hell of it. You know, I think it was my 7th time seeing the film, and so I took my brother Tommy along to watch, and he is 12, and so, you know, he was excited to see it. You know, obviously not as much as I was when I first saw it, but you know, he likes Star Wars, and you know, was looking forward to seeing it. So we went to see it in 4DX, and first of all, it's 3D as well, which I'm not a big fan of, and again, it's yeah, it looked alright in 3D, you know, but there's a dimness to the image at times. There's just, it doesn't add much to me. It really does. I mean, I saw someone below us in one of the rows near the front of the screening room, kind of going like that, as if they could touch the lightsaber on screen. I'm thinking, is it just my eyes? I don't know. It doesn't really pop that much for me. Not really a fan of 3D. But with this, it's kind of an all-encompassing experience, so I could go along with it. So what they have in this screening room is basically the kind of there's usually a couple of, it depends the layout of what cinema you go to. There's different ways of doing it. In a lot of cinemas, you'll have, you know, seats on the left, seats on the right, and then like steps going up through the middle. That's how this screening room was laid out. So on the left you have 8 seats, on the right you have 8 seats, and each of those kind of rows is split into 4 seats per section. So basically 4 seats move independently of themselves like that. So I was thinking when we first sat down, and the seats are like raised a couple of feet off the floor, about a foot off the floor probably. So I was like, whoa, this is probably like a ride, you know, but there's no, you don't get strapped in or anything like that. And I was thinking, well, we're in a row of 4 seats, so surely my seat is not going to be turning left to right because there's no way to do it. You know, so I thought, okay, so it's going to tilt back and maybe tilt forward, you know, something like that. But when it wasn't when the film started, we saw a couple of trailers to begin with, and then there was some kind of like Need for Speed game trailer or something, and that's when it was like a 4DX trailer. All of a sudden, these kind of like noises start happening everywhere. This room just erupts in noise, and the whole 4 seats just started moving to the side like that, and I'm like, holy shit! Like, I'm gonna have to put my jacket on the floor. Like, I had my jacket on the seat next to me and stuff, and it really, there's a lot of dynamic motion going on because there's 4 seats connected. So it's kind of fun for, I guess, if you're going in a group of 2 or 3 or 4, that you're all experiencing the exact same thing. I guess we all are in the cinema, but you know, it's kind of nice to be connected in that sense. But it gives kind of the, I guess without kind of, I don't know, I feel like it maybe would be tougher to do it in single seats because they'd have to be spaced out so much. So you can still be sat next to people quite closely when you go and see a film, and then the whole thing's moving around. Anyway, so The Last Jedi. We saw the game trailer, and you know, the seats are moving around, there's smoke coming up and stuff, and it was like, whoa, that was really weird, and people like laughing and stuff. It sounded like there were other people in the cinema who were seeing it for the first time in 4D and kind of just experiencing all this newness like me and my brother were as well. So I was thinking, okay, that's a trailer. Maybe that's a bit more heightened. Maybe that's a bit more full on, and they're really trying to showcase what this thing can do. Maybe in a 2.5-hour film, it's going to be a bit more subdued and kind of, you know, they'll save those moments for, you know, they'll space it out, you know, and not kind of go full bore the whole time. So the film opens with, you know, the Star Wars logo, text is scrolling, nothing's happening. Okay, cool. And then the classic kind of, you know, the text disappears and then the camera tilts down. And then we started tilting down. And then in The Last Jedi, the opening shot is slowly but surely kind of panning down to the Resistance ships leaving the planet of Dakar. And so the camera's panning past all these ships. And with every ship, like to the left and the right, the seat was like, was rumbling. And it's like, holy shit. And then we end up on the surface of the planet. Ships are taking off, their propulsor jets are firing off, and suddenly this burst of wind kind of blew my hair back. And I just went, ah, like that, because it was just so incredible. You know, and did that novelty last the whole movie? No, of course it didn't. But to begin with, it was like, oh my god, this is like, it's like I'm really there, you know. But again, throughout the 2.5 hours, you know, there is no real immersion. You know, you are very aware of the fact that you're sitting in a cinema with moving chairs and even looking and seeing how the other people are reacting and stuff. Also, I noticed that if you look at other people, if you kind of like steal a quick glance at the other rows in the cinema, particularly on your side, not in front of you, but if you look at it on a level, you know, across to whoever's sitting on the other side of the room, you really see how much their chair is moving, whereas you start to get used to it and you feel like you're not moving that much, but then you look over there and you're seeing them kind of like jerking, like, holy shit, it really is kind of quite involving with the movement. Especially in the space sequences. The opening bombing sequence was unbelievable. Like the camera's panning around to the Star Destroyer, and so the chairs are panning around. Like it's such a weird experience, but it was so cool. When the laser blasts are going off, you get these two air vents behind your ears going pff, pff, and so you get kind of like a surround effect too. Like there's a scene where Poe is flying across the dreadnought, and he's firing at these two TIE fighters, and they both explode, and it's like pff, pff. And so you really, I don't want to say like you feel like you're there, because you don't, but it's just a really cool added effect, I think. It makes me think of just the simple introduction of the DualShock, I'll leave that one in for free, the DualShock controller for the PlayStation, where, you know, it would vibrate with your movements. It's like, oh my god, it's like in sync with, that was a really cool thing. I guess they had it with the Nintendo 64 first, with the Rumble Pack, which I think I did have actually. And of course, with all these things going off, like the air and stuff and the seat moving, obviously there's rumbling in the seat that you're sitting in, and it's to varying degrees, which is really well done and subtle at times. Like one of my favourite mini moments of The Last Jedi is just before Leia gets shot out of the bridge of the Resistance cruiser. When Kylo and the two TIE fighters following him, they rattle past the bridge. And the camera spins around, we see the ships flying past, and the camera pans to Leia, who's suddenly realizing her son is out there inside this ship. And there's this kind of rumbling, this kind of the rattling of the bridge as these TIE fighters rip past the outside of the window. And then the seats start rumbling. That was really fucking cool. I loved that. And obviously, you know, when Leia does her kind of spacewalk, that the camera's panning with it, the seat is panning with the camera. So I just love how involved it makes you feel in those moments. Then you have the water, which was first experienced when Finn comes out of his bacta suit and it starts leaking everywhere and we start getting sprayed. At first it was coming from the ceiling, it felt like. I was like, holy shit, like what? But really there's sprays in the seats in front of you. And they have varying degrees of, like, the one just sprays upwards really high and comes down on top of your head. There's some that kind of just goes pff, and gives you a little spray in your face. You know, again, varying degrees, different nozzles and that kind of stuff. And you know, the really cool thing is that if that, I mean, I could see why that would bug people, because you do get wet. You don't get wet enough that it kind of, it's like just walking out when it's drizzling for like a couple of seconds. You know, you can kind of just rub your arm off and it's gone basically. It's the perfect amount. It's not too little that you don't really feel it, but it's not too much that it actually gets you wet to the point of bothering you. But there is a handy switch in your armrest to turn off the water effects if you wish, which I think is a great idea, but I left mine on just for the hell of it. So in the scenes on the island where it's raining, you kind of get rain coming down every now and again, but my favourite use of the water was when we're on the casino planet of Canto Bight, and there's a close-up shot of a guy with a champagne bottle kind of just psh, popping off the top, and then suddenly we just get a spray over us. So I thought it was really cool, just little kind of fun details which were peppered throughout the entire film. The Fathier chase sequence on Canto Bight was incredible. It almost felt like you were on a horse, you know, like just the way the seat was moving and everything. That was one of the highlights too. But again, the opening bombing sequence was just, I would pay to see that again, alone, you know. But here's where it doesn't work so well, and that's the dialogue sequences. Particularly the one I'm thinking of the most is when Luke and Rey are on the cliff face, and she's sitting down cross-legged, and he's giving her her first lesson. You know, it's a quiet scene, it's just dialogue between the two of them, and I don't know what these fans were, but there's these big fans in the ceiling. And now this could be different. I mean, this could just be the one screening room I went to. Might be different around the world, or maybe even in different places in the UK. It might have even been that they were particularly loud for some reason. Maybe they're old, I don't know. But these fans were like, so it sounded like on that Luke and Ray sequence that they were helicopters flying around the island. I'm just like, And you can hear the dialogue, but you have to struggle. You have to really pay attention. Now, I'd seen the film a handful of times, so I knew what was being said, but I just felt like, it really is, the subtlety is suffering with this experience, I have to say. So I think that with big action movies, I think it's a great thing to do. But obviously, no one's going to go see like Manchester by the Sea in 4DX. You know, films that are really dialogue based. There's just no point whatsoever. And obviously, they know that, and they only cater towards the films that are going to benefit from it. So I think the only one showing when I was back home was Last Jedi and Jumanji, which makes sense to me. So I would assume that the big movies, Marvel movies, they get that kind of treatment, which is fair enough. There's supposed to be scents, where you can smell things going on. And there was one part where I felt like I was smelling kind of burnt stuff. But I think that might have been the fog machines. There's these two fog machines at the front of the cinema that kind of burst out this fog. It's not too much. I almost feel like they could have done even more. But again, you kind of get into health and safety if you do it around the audience. So it's nicely done at the front of the screen, where you can see it, you can feel it, but it's not too invasive. But the scents I didn't really smell. Now, my sense of smell isn't great to begin with, but I still have one, you know. And I didn't really smell. I thought there could have been some really good opportunities to put in different smells throughout the film. And I'm not sure how they did it, because I would smell these certain things, go, is that supposed to, am I supposed to be smelling that? Because I can't place what kind of smell it is, but it seems appropriate. But then those fans weren't good. So I feel like, were the fans pumping in the scent, or were they pumping in the wind? Because, now, apologies if this is getting confusing, but whenever there are wind effects, you know, like just a woof, like that, it felt like there was something from the seat in front of me, or in the back of my seat, and it was really effective. But actual kind of wind from the ceiling doesn't seem to be doing much, so I don't know what those fans were. My only guess was that they were pumping in scent, which didn't seem all that effective. So I really feel like, I mean, look at what you can do with like a Febreze bottle. The amount of kind of different smells you can get, and you can spray it and you can smell it quite vividly. Maybe like a half effect of that in the front of the seat in front of you, psst, you know, get kind of a quick scent in, maybe last 5-10 seconds, but it's something and it adds to the experience. I don't know, but it could just be the cinema I was in. I feel like the scent aspect was fairly, you know, non-existent, unfortunately. Another thing that I didn't like too much, I appreciated the intent of it, but for me personally, with a little bit of a bad back, I didn't appreciate the pistons in the back of the chair. You get these kind of two pistons that kind of punch you, basically, and maybe that's a bit aggressive, because it never hurt, but it definitely was uncomfortable at times. So you'll get like when Finn gets shocked by Rose and he flies back and he hits the back wall of this escape pod. The pistons hit you in the back as if you've just been, you know, thrown back, and it was like, oh Jesus, okay, that was a bit aggressive, you know. I don't know if they need to go that far with it. Some of it really worked, like when Snoke got cut in half with a lightsaber. We got kind of, I think it was just the right side, like it's like, oh shit, you know. So I liked it, but it was maybe just dial it down a bit in terms of the how much it hits the people in the back, or have maybe more of a padded feel to it, because it really was quite, you know, uncomfortable at times. But I appreciated the intent of it to kind of do all these different things to make you feel like you're there. Lightsaber flashes, you know, I think there's only one lightsaber clash in the film, when Luke and Ben have that flashback sequence, and when the lightsabers clash, the whole room lit up like a lightning blast. It was fucking awesome. So I can only imagine what it's like to see an actual clashing sabers duel, where it's flashing off, you know, around everywhere. Obviously, when Yoda cast the lightning down on the tree on the island, the whole room lit up in a lightning blast. That was really cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and of course the Battle of Crate, where, and this is another effect I forgot about, is one of my favourite sequences of the film, and I was so looking forward to seeing it in this 4DX format, as I was sitting there for a couple of hours realising how cool it was, how fun it was. And, you know, we have the skimmers coming in across the salt flats, the ships that have this kind of rud that goes into the salt minerals and rips up the red dust from underneath, and when it's kind of skimming along, you get these kind of rubber tendrils, these kind of little wires that are underneath the back of your legs, the back of your shins, and they flicker up into your legs, so you feel like the dust is getting ripped up underneath your feet. That was such a cool fucking tiny detail that was just like, oh, this is great, you know. And again, when the Millennium Falcon flies into the caves and the gun gets kind of grinded against the red rock, you get the feeling underneath your legs. And that's one of my favorite mini moments, again, is when the Falcon flies into the red caves and that kind of the Death Star escape theme hits in. That was just so fucking cool, one of my favorite parts of the film. And I was really anticipating, like, this better be fucking good, and it was. The chairs moving around, awesome. So there we go, that was my kind of review of the 4DX experience. I was worried that it was a bit too much for my brother, like maybe it's just a bit too full on, especially for his first time. And he was kind of just sat there very kind of stoically. And about 10 minutes into it, I was like, you're right. And he's like, this is amazing. So I think he really enjoyed it too. I would love to do it a few more times with films that I've already seen if I care about them, like Star Wars, or if it's like the Fast and the Furious, you know. Yeah, and it was only like £10, which I think is a reasonable price, considering what you get for it, and considering I think 3D films can be like £12, £13 sometimes. So that's my 4DX review. IMAX, not going to talk about it very much, but that was the last time I saw it, the 8th and final time of seeing The Last Jedi in the cinema. The screen is awesome. It's just so big and enveloping, and I sat pretty much in the middle. Not too many people in there. It was like the 10 AM morning show was the only time I could go. It was like the day before I came back here. And it wasn't in 3D. I went to the counter and she's like, yeah, it's not in 3D, sorry. And I was like, oh. Any reason why? No, I don't know. I was like, well, it works for me. I don't like 3D, so this is awesome. I get to see it in IMAX format, but also in 2D. And if you don't know, IMAX is a taller screen, but also they fit those rooms out with such a great sound system. Like, the sound is so loud that it rumbles the chair. And it almost was like a quasi 4DX experience with some of the sound in the film, especially in the big battle sequences where it's these explosions going off and the seats kind of rumbling with the explosions. Awesome. Just the right amount, and the sound was, it wasn't like it was too loud either. It was like it's perfectly balanced as well. So that was a great experience too, because I think when I went to see The Force Awakens in IMAX, it was in 3D, and that kind of marred it a little bit because I just don't like 3D. So that was perfect for me. That was the perfect final viewing for me, to see the film like that. So yeah, IMAX, you know, I guess I didn't really talk about that much, but it was really, really cool. Would definitely have preferred to have seen it like that every single time, but it is what it is. So that's it. If you've seen the film in 4DX, or if you've seen any film in 4DX, leave your thoughts down. I'd love to hear more people talking about this. I don't really know many people who've even seen a film in 4DX. I would love to see The Force Awakens in 4DX, or the other Star Wars films. That would be cool. You know, it's kind of sad to think I might not see it in that format again, because it's such a fun novelty, you know. It's not the way to watch movies, but it's a way to watch movies, and a pretty damn fun way. So that's it for my 4DX review and brief IMAX thoughts. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.